He was standing on the rooftop when his phone stopped ringing. Not because it died, not because he turned it off, because every person he had left Saint-Louis, every soldier, every contact, every man who had ever feared his name, had run out of answers. Kim Young-kwang stood at the edge of the Manhattan skyline on a Thursday night, and for the first time in 22 years of running one of the most feared organizations in the northeastern United States, he felt the specific weight of a man who has everything and cannot buy back the one thing that matters. His son had been missing for 72 hours. 72 hours, 3 days, 432 minutes of silence from a 17-year-old boy who had never once been invisible in his father's world. Not because Kim had kept him close, but because Kim had worked so hard to keep him far. Private schools, quiet neighborhoods, a last name that didn't appear on any document connected to what his father actually did. All of it. Gone. And no one had found him. The police had been notified through the right channels, with the right pressure applied by the right people. Nothing. His men had searched every dock, every warehouse, every known rival location within 200 miles. Nothing. $3 million had been quietly moved to information networks that had never failed him before. Nothing. Kim Young-kwang turned from the skyline and walked back toward the group of men assembled on that rooftop. 7 of them, each one a specialist, each one visibly uncomfortable in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. And the silence that fell when he looked at them was the kind that happens when powerful men realize they are about to fail someone more powerful. He was about to speak when the door opened. Not slowly, not hesitantly. Just opened, and a voice came through it that did not belong to any man on that roof. "My dog can find your son." Every head turned. The men reached for weapons. 2 of them stepped forward. One of them actually laughed. A short, involuntary sound that he immediately regretted when Kim's eyes moved to him. Standing in the doorway was a child. 9 years old, small, dark-skinned with natural hair pulled back and eyes that were doing something unusual. They were not wide with fear. They were steady, focused, moving around the rooftop the way a person's eyes move when they are calculating, not when they are scared. Beside her, sitting with the practiced calm of an animal that has learned to read rooms, was a Belgian Malinois. Tawny and lean, with ears alert and a gaze that somehow inexplicably was already pointed at Kim. The girl's hands were folded in front of her. She did not move from the doorway. She did not repeat herself. She simply waited. Kim Young-kwang looked at this child for a long moment. Around him, men were shifting, muttering, exchanging glances that said the same thing. Who let a child up here? And why is she still standing? But Kim was not looking at her the way his men were. He was looking at her the way he looked at things that surprised him, with interest. "Who are you?" he said, not a question, a command shaped like one. "Amara," she said. "My mom is Sharon Michaels. She's downstairs. She told me to wait, but I didn't." One of the men exhaled sharply. Kim did not move. "Your dog," he said. "Rex," she said. "He's a certified trailing K9. He's tracked across 17 confirmed search operations. He's never failed a live scent trail under 96 hours old." She paused. "You have 72. Silence. "You're searching in the wrong place," she said. The man who had laughed earlier did not laugh this time. If you are still watching this story, if something in your chest just tightened the way it does when a child walks into a room full of dangerous men and refuses to be small, then you already know this story is going to ask something of you. It's going to ask you to sit with it. Subscribe so you don't lose it. And tell me in the comments, what did you feel in that moment? Not what you thought, what you felt. Because the people in this community don't just watch, they pay attention. And there's a difference. The woman at the bottom of the stairs had not moved since Amara disappeared through the door. Sharon Michaels was 38 years old, and she had spent most of those years learning how to read rooms before she entered them. Military background. K-9 training and handler certification. 4 years working with a federal task force that specialized in organized crime infiltration before she left. Quietly, carefully, and with the kind of exit that people arrange when they know too much and want to stay alive. She had built something modest after that, a small private security consulting firm, 3 employees, contracts with corporate clients who needed threat assessment and didn't ask too many questions. A 2-bedroom apartment in Crown Heights where Amara did her homework at the kitchen table and Rex slept at the foot of the bed. A life that was deliberately unremarkable, and she had almost kept it that way. But 2 days ago, Amara had been sitting at that kitchen table doing exactly what she always did, half reading, half listening to the news playing low from Sharon's laptop. And she had looked up and said very calmly, "Mom, that's the man whose son is missing. I know where he might be." Sharon had closed the laptop. She had looked at her daughter for a long time. "No," she had said. And Amara had looked back at her with those eyes that had never fully understood the concept of backing down and said, "Mom, whom the dog knows too." Rex had lifted his head from the floor and looked at Sharon. That was 2 days ago. Now Sharon was standing at the base of a staircase in a building she had no business being in, listening to silence from the floor above, and doing the specific math of a woman who knows how bad an idea is and has done it anyway because the alternative was worse. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Not Amara's. Heavier. A man appeared, mid-40s, sharp suit, the particular posture of someone who manages other dangerous people rather than being dangerous himself. He looked at her the way people look at things that don't fit. "Mr. Kim will see you," he said. Sharon picked up her bag and climbed the stairs. The rooftop was colder than she expected. Even the men arranged around it had rearranged themselves since Amara's entrance. She could tell by the way they were positioned, slightly off from where they would naturally stand, recalibrated around the presence of a child who had apparently disrupted something. Kim Young-kwang was standing near the center of the space. She had seen photographs. They did not prepare you for the stillness of him. Most powerful men filled rooms with movement, with the noise of their own importance. Kim was the opposite. He was the kind of man who made the room come to him. He looked at Sharon the way he had looked at Amara, assessing, unhurried. "Your daughter," he said, "told my men they were searching in the wrong place." "She said that to me 2 days ago," Sharon replied. "If you waited 2 days. I spent 2 days trying to talk her out of coming here." Something moved behind Kim's eyes. Not amusement, recognition. "She told you the dog would find him. She told me Rex already had a scent direction. From a news photograph, the fabric of the jacket the boy was wearing in his last known public appearance." Sharon paused. She noticed he was wearing the same jacket in the background of a photograph from a fundraiser event 3 weeks earlier. She matched the scent profile from the family's public Instagram. There was a video of the son and a dog. Rex responded to the screen. Kim was very still. "She's 9, he said. "I know," Sharon said. "Believe me." Amara, who had been standing quietly beside Rex near the rooftop ledge, looked over at this exchange and then looked back at the dog. He was apparently satisfied that the adults were finally communicating at the appropriate level. One of the men near the back, broad, with the kind of jaw that suggested he had never in his life been told no and survived the experience, crossed his arms and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "We're doing this? We're actually doing this? We brought in a woman and a child and a dog because our own people couldn't." "Hansu," Kim said. The man stopped. "Go downstairs." A pause that lasted exactly 1 second longer than it should have. Then Hansu uncrossed his arms and walked to the staircase without another word. Kim looked back at Sharon. 30 minutes, he said. Show me what you have. Sharon looked at Amara. Amara was already unclipping Rex's lead, and what happened in the next 4 minutes would later be described by two of Kim's men, independently to people they trusted, as the strangest thing they had ever seen in a career full of strange things. Rex moved, not frantically, not in the excited, scattered way that untrained animals move when they catch a scent. He moved the way water moves when it finds a channel, with direction, with inevitability, following something invisible and absolutely certain. He went to the staircase door first, stopped, turned, went to the eastern edge of the rooftop, pressed his nose briefly to the ledge, then turned again. Away from the river, away from the docks and warehouses where Kim's men had been searching for 3 days, and pointed with the specific orientation of his entire body toward the financial district. There, Amara said. Kim looked at the skyline in the direction Rex was facing. Glass towers, corporate headquarters, the kind of Manhattan that had nothing to do with the Manhattan he operated in. My son has no connection to that area, he said. I know, Amara said. That's why no one looked there. She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket, a printout, slightly crumpled, and held it up. On it was a screen grab from what appeared to be security footage. Grainy. Timestamp in the corner. This is from a traffic camera, she said. On Fulton Street, 48 hours ago. That's your son's jacket. Kim crossed the rooftop in 5 steps and took the paper. He looked at it for a long time. His face did not change, but his jaw tightened. Where did you get this? He said. Then I submitted a public records request to the DOT camera system, Amara said. It takes 48 hours to process. I submitted it the same day I told my mom. She paused. She said no for 2 days. The camera response came this morning. Sharon, watching this exchange, felt the specific emotion of a parent whose child has just been simultaneously mortifying and extraordinary. She pressed her lips together and said nothing. One of Kim's men, younger, quieter than the others, with the look of someone who was actually processing what was happening rather than performing skepticism, leaned forward and said, the footage was supposed to be clean. We had someone scrub all camera records in the search radius. You scrubbed the records in your search radius, Amara said without looking up from Rex. Fulton Street was outside your radius. You assumed he went toward the water because that's where people go when they don't want to be found in your world. But he wasn't going somewhere to hide from your world. He was going somewhere specific. Kim placed the printout carefully on the ledge in front of him. My son, he said slowly, was arguing with me 4 days ago about the direction of the organization. He asked me. He stopped. What did he ask you? Sharon said. Kim looked at her. The roof was very quiet. He asked me if fear was the only thing I knew how to build. No one said anything for a moment. Then Amara said matter-of-factly, he wasn't running away from you. He was running towards something. There's a difference. Rex knows the difference too. Scared people's scent goes in circles. Your determined people's scent goes in a line. Kim Young-Kwang looked at this 9-year-old girl for a long, unreadable moment. Then he said to Sharon, we move in 20 minutes. Your team leads. Sharon looked at him. My team, she said, is me, my daughter, and a dog. I know, Kim said, and that's why I said your team leads. In the elevator going down, one of Kim's men, the younger one, whose name was Ji-ho, and who had been watching everything with the quiet attention of someone who had survived this long by paying better attention than everyone else, leaned toward Sharon and said very quietly, does she do this often? Sharon looked at Amara, who was telling Rex something in a low voice, her hand on his neck, the dog listening with the seriousness of a colleague. Define often, Sharon said. Ji-ho nodded slowly, either as if this answered something. They moved out into the night. The convoy was 3 vehicles. Black, unmarked, the kind that moved through Manhattan without calling attention specifically because they looked like they belonged to someone who didn't need attention. Sharon rode in the second vehicle with Amara and Rex. Kim rode in the same vehicle, which Sharon noted and filed away. He was watching, not directing. Watching. This was not a man who trusted easily. This was a man who was choosing in real time whether to trust at all. She understood that. She had been that person once. "Can I ask you something?" Kim said halfway through the drive. Sharon looked at him. "The federal work," he said. "You left 4 years ago." She kept her face even. "You did research." "In the last 40 minutes? Yes." "That's fast. I'm motivated." He looked at her directly. "Why did you leave?" Sharon was quiet for a moment. Outside, the city moved past, the specific nighttime brightness of Manhattan, all that light going nowhere in particular. "Because I was good at finding people," she said finally, "and I stopped being sure that everyone I was helping find deserved to be found." Kim absorbed this. "And now you came here," he said. "To find my son." "My daughter came here," Sharon said. "I followed my daughter. Those are different things." In the front seat, Amara had turned around and was looking at Kim with the frank appraisal of a child who has not yet learned to make her assessment of adults less visible. "You love him?" she said to Kim. "Your son. You just don't know how to show it in a way he can feel." Kim looked at her. "Amara," Sharon said. "I'm just saying what's true," Amara said, turning back around. "Rex can smell grief. It smells different from fear. You've been grieving since before he disappeared." The car was very quiet. Ji-ho in the front passenger seat appeared to be studying the dashboard with considerable intensity. Kim said nothing for the rest of the drive. They parked 2 blocks from a parking structure on the edge of the financial district. Concrete, unremarkable, the kind of structure that existed in every city as a functional thing no one ever looked at closely. 7 levels. Corporate building access on the east side. Rex was out of the car before the door was fully open. He went straight. No hesitation, no casting for scent. He had it already, had apparently held it the entire drive, and the way trained trailing dogs hold a thread of smell, the way musicians hold a note, continuous and certain through all the noise. "He's been here," Amara said, jogging slightly to keep up with Rex's pace. "Recently, within the last 24 hours. Kim's men fanned out around the perimeter. Kim walked directly behind Amara and Rex, which Sharon noticed again and filed away. He was not delegating. He was present. They went to the 3rd level. Rex slowed, stopped, turned to the left toward a section of the structure where the lighting had partially failed. 2 of the overhead fixtures dark, the 3rd flickering in a way that made the space feel deliberately unlit rather than accidentally maintained. Amara stopped walking. She was looking at the ground. "That's wrong," she said. Sharon came up beside her. "What?" Amara pointed. And on the concrete floor, barely visible in the flickering light, was a scattering of small metallic wrappers. Snack packaging. The kind you'd get from a vending machine or a convenience store. "That's honeydew melon candy," Amara said. "Korean brand. My friend's mom buys them. They're not common here." She looked up at Kim. "Is that something your son eats?" Kim had gone very still. "Yes," he said quietly. "It's placed wrong," Amara said. "Look, they're spaced, like someone put them there deliberately, not like someone dropped them while walking. Someone arranged them to be found." Sharon crouched and looked at the wrappers without touching them. The spacing was too even. 4 wrappers, in a loose arc pointing. She turned and followed the direction, toward the stairwell. "He left a trail," Sharon said. "And he wanted to be found," Amara said. She said it the same way she had said everything else, plainly without drama, as if she were reading something visible that the adults around her simply hadn't looked at yet. He wanted the right person to find him. Someone who would understand the trail instead of walking past it. Kim made a sound that was not quite a word. Sharon straightened and looked at him. His face, for the first time since she had met him 40 minutes ago, was not controlled. Something had moved through it. Not weakness, not collapse, but the specific expression of a person who has just understood something that should have been obvious, and is reckoning with the cost of not having understood it sooner. He knew you'd look for him, Sharon said quietly. He just wasn't sure you'd look in the right way. Kim looked at the candy wrappers on the concrete floor. Then he looked at Amara. Keep going, he said. They went to the stairwell. Rex was already at the door, sitting, looking back at them with the patient authority of an animal that has completed its portion of the work and is waiting for the humans to catch up. Sharon pushed the door open. The stairwell was clean, functional, and on the wall beside the second-floor landing someone had pressed a small adhesive note, the kind you'd find in any office building, pale yellow, about 2 inches square. On it, in neat handwriting, were 4 numbers. Sharon photographed it before anyone touched it. Jiho leaned in and looked at it. That's an account number format, he said, partial, and the last 4 digits of a wire transfer reference. Kim's expression shifted. That's internal coding, he said. His voice was different now, not lower exactly, but denser, the way a voice gets when it's carrying more weight than usual. From our financial structure, the format isn't public. He would have had to. He stopped. He got into the internal records. He wasn't just hiding, Sharon said. He was documenting. He found something, Jiho said. He was already on his phone. If that's what I think it is, tell me, Kim said. Jiho looked at his phone for a long moment. Then he looked at Kim with the expression of a man who is choosing his next sentence very carefully because he knows it will change something permanently. There's been a series of transfers, Jiho said. Small, irregular, structured specifically to avoid internal reporting thresholds. I noticed an anomaly 3 weeks ago and flagged it. Han-Su told me it was a legacy account being closed out. The name sat in the air. Han-Su, the man Kim had sent downstairs. Kim said nothing. He's been managing the transfers personally, Jiho continued. Destination accounts linked to a shell corporation registered in Delaware. I couldn't trace the beneficial ownership without... He stopped. Without access, I don't have. My son has that access, Kim said. Yes, Jiho said. Sharon watched Kim absorb this. She had seen men receive bad news in many different ways over her career. Some exploded, some went cold. Some deflected immediately into action to avoid feeling anything. Kim went still in a way that was different from his usual stillness, and his usual stillness was controlled. This was the stillness of someone who is standing on ground that has just shifted and is deciding whether to move. How long? He said. The transfers started 14 months ago, Jiho said. 14 months. Kim closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. Then he opened them and looked at Amara, who was sitting on the stairwell step beside Rex, her hand moving slowly over the dog's back, watching Kim with the careful attention of a child who knows that the adults in the room are handling something important and has the rare maturity not to interrupt it. You said he wanted to be found, Kim said to her. Yes, she said. By me? Amara looked at him for a moment. By the version of you he still believes in, she said. The stairwell was very quiet. Somewhere above them, and in the levels of the parking structure, a car started and pulled out. The sound moved through the concrete and faded. Sharon looked at Kim and said carefully, He didn't go to law enforcement directly. He didn't take the evidence public. He didn't disappear to protect himself. He hid in a location connected to your financial district activities and left a trail designed to be followed by someone trained in tracking and search. She paused. He engineered this. He engineered it so that you would have to come find him, so that finding him would force you to see what he found. Kim turned away from them. He walked to the small stairwell window that looked out over the street below. Just the sidewalk, a few people, the ordinary life of a city that had no idea what was happening in this concrete stairwell. His shoulders were very straight, as Sharon recognized that posture. She had seen it in other people who were holding themselves together from the outside in because the inside had already gone somewhere complicated. Jiho looked at Sharon. Sharon looked at Amara. Amara looked at Rex. Rex put his head on Amara's knee. He's still in this building, Amara said quietly. Rex hasn't released the trail. He's still here. Kim turned back from the window. Something had settled in his face. Not peace, not resolution. Something harder and more honest than either of those things. The look of a man who has made a decision that he knows is going to cost him something significant and has decided to make it anyway. Find him, he said. No, and if you've been watching since the beginning, if this story has moved something in you that you don't usually let get moved, I need you to do something right now. Not for the channel, for yourself. Have you ever had someone in your life who hid from you not because they were afraid of you, but because they needed you to prove you would look? Drop it in the comments. Just one word, one sentence. Whatever it was. Because the people watching this right now are not strangers. They are people who have lived something. And this is the place where that counts. They went up. Rex led them to the 5th level of the structure. Not the top, not the bottom. The specific middle anonymity of a floor that people drove through without stopping because there was always parking lower down or higher up. In the far corner behind a support pillar, there was a car. Older model, unremarkable, the kind of car you rent with cash. The windows were fogged slightly from the inside. Rex sat down. Sharon put her hand on Kim's arm, briefly a restraint, not a comfort, and stepped forward first. She knocked on the window. A long pause. Then the window came down. 17 years old. Kim's jaw, Kim's eyes, Kim's particular quality of stillness. But younger and currently wearing the expression of someone who has been sitting in a cold car for 30 hours preparing himself for a conversation he doesn't know how to have. He looked at Sharon, then past her at Amara and Rex, then at his father. Kim Young-kwang looked at his son. The boy's name was Min-jun. He had his father's name and his mother's warmth, and right now his eyes were doing something complicated, moving between wariness and relief, and the specific exhaustion of someone who has been braced for impact for so long that the impact almost feels like a kindness when it finally comes. "You brought a dog," Min-jun said. His voice was rough. He hadn't slept. "She brought the dog," Kim said with a slight movement of his head toward Amara. Min-jun looked at Amara. Amara looked back at him with her customary directness. "You left good evidence," she said. The candy was smart. Most adults would have walked past it. Min-jun blinked, then unexpectedly cracked, not into tears, into a short, disbelieving sound that was almost a laugh and was clearly the first thing resembling a laugh he had produced in several days, and in which he immediately pressed his mouth closed against as if he wasn't sure it was appropriate. Jiho, standing near the pillar, made a sound that might have been a cough. Sharon felt the specific physical sensation of tension releasing in small increments across her shoulders. "Get out of the car, Min-jun," Kim said, not harshly. Quietly. The door opened. Min-jun stood. He was slightly taller than his father, the height of a boy who isn't done growing yet. And he was holding a manila folder against his chest with both arms crossed over it the way someone holds something they've been protecting for days and aren't ready to let go of. He looked at his father. I found the transfers 8 weeks ago, he said, without preamble, without softening, gamble. And I went into the internal financial records because I was trying to understand how the organization was structured, not to cause problems. I wanted to understand. He paused. And I found Han Su. Kim said nothing. 14 months, Minjun said. He's been systematically moving money through shell accounts, not to a rival, to himself, and attached to the Shell Corporation. He stopped. His jaw worked for a moment. Dad, it's not just money. Kim looked at the folder. The corporation has subsidiaries, Minjun said. 2 of them are logistics companies. They've been used as infrastructure for... He stopped again, swallowed. Trafficking. People trafficking through the ports, using our network, using our reputation as cover. The parking structure was very quiet. Han Su has been running it for 14 months, Minjun said. Under your name. Under the protection of your organization. Without your knowledge. He looked at his father directly. At least, I hope, without your knowledge. Kim looked at his son for a long moment. You thought I might have known, he said. I didn't know, Minjun said. That's why I didn't go straight to you. I needed to know if you were in it or if you'd been used. His voice was steady, but his hands, Sharon noticed, were gripping the folder hard enough to white his knuckles. I needed evidence either way, and I needed it before I made a choice I couldn't take back. Kim took a single step forward. Minjun held his ground. Father and son stood in the dim light of a 5th-floor parking structure, and between them was 14 months of betrayal that neither of them had created, and both of them were going to have to carry. You should have come to me, Kim said. I needed to know who I was coming to, Minjun said. A beat. Then Kim said very quietly, And now? Minjun looked at him. The folder has everything, he said. Account numbers, transfer records, names, shipping manifests, dates. He paused. Enough to dismantle it completely. Enough to hand to the right people and make it stop. The right people, Kim said. Yes, Minjun said. Which is a conversation we need to have, because the right people might not be the people you usually call. Sharon, who had been standing slightly apart from this exchange with the professional awareness of someone who knew exactly what the right people meant in this context and exactly how complicated this was about to get, made a quiet sound. Both Kims looked at her. I might know the right people, she said, and Kim looked at her for a moment. The federal work, he said. I left on good terms, Sharon said. Mostly. Minjun looked at Sharon, then at his father, then at the small girl standing beside a Belgian Malinois who was sitting calmly in the middle of a Mafia family crisis at 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. Who are you people? Minjun said. Amara Michaels, Amara said. This is Rex. He found you. Minjun looked at Rex. Rex looked back at him with the self-possessed calm of an animal that has done its job completely and is prepared to be appreciated. Thank you, Minjun said to the dog with complete sincerity. Rex's tail moved once. Jiho, who had been quiet for several minutes, spoke up. Han Su knows we've been looking. He doesn't know what we found. But when we don't come back with nothing, he'll run, Kim said. Or he'll accelerate whatever he's planning, Jiho said. Kim looked at Minjun. How many people in the organization know what you found? No one, Minjun said. I came to you just... He stopped. The long way. Something shifted in Kim's expression. The smallest thing, almost invisible. But Sharon saw it, and she thought, watching the two of them in that dim light with the city moving invisibly below. The boy had engineered the entire thing. His disappearance, the trail, the location. Not to escape his father, but to force his father to come looking in a way that couldn't be explained away or managed or redirected by the machinery of power that Kim usually operated. He had made his father choose, and Kim had chosen. He had gotten in a car with a child and a dog and driven toward the truth. That choice was already made. What came next was consequence. Sharon was the one who said they needed to move, not loudly, not with urgency that would spike the adrenaline of 7 armed men and produce decisions nobody could take back. She said it the way she said most things. Flatly, clearly, with the particular authority of someone who has been in enough tight situations to know that calm is not the absence of urgency. It is its management. "We have a window," she said. "Hansu doesn't know what we found. He knows you came out tonight and you haven't reported back. That's maybe 2 hours before he starts making decisions of his own. We use the 2 hours or we lose the window." Kim looked at her. "What do you need?" he said. "A secure room. Your financial records and a full access, not the version that's been presented to you. Jiho." She looked at Jiho. "Teed, can you pull the original transfer architecture without Hansu knowing the system has been accessed?" Jiho's expression was the expression of a man who had been waiting to be asked exactly this question. 20 minutes, he said. "We have a contact," Sharon said carefully. "At the federal level. Someone I trust, someone who will handle this in a way that prioritizes the victims of the trafficking operation above everything else, including the political value of whoever they can prosecute." She paused. "That's a condition. Non-negotiable. The people who are moved through those ports are the reason this gets handled correctly. Not as leverage, not as evidence inventory, as people." Kim was quiet for a moment, then agreed. Minjun, who had been listening to this exchange with the expression of someone watching a negotiation he had imagined in the abstract for weeks, suddenly become real and fast-moving, looked at his father. "Just like that?" he said. "What?" Kim said. "You just agreed immediately." "Your alternative is what?" Kim said. "I negotiate, I protect the organization at the expense of what Hansu built inside it?" He looked at his son directly. "I didn't know, Minjun. I want to be clear. I did not know." Minjun held his father's gaze. "I know," he said. "Now." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't the completion of anything. It was something more honest than both. An acknowledgement between two people that the ground had shifted and they were both standing on it and neither of them was going to pretend otherwise. Sharon recognized it. She had had a version of that conversation once, with someone who mattered, at a moment when honesty was the only thing left that cost something real. She picked up her bag. "Then let's go," she said. They moved out of the parking structure in a different configuration than they'd entered. Minjun now with them, the manila folder held against his side, Rex walking close at Amara's heel with the quiet purposefulness of a dog that has shifted from search mode to something that felt, if you were paying attention, like protection. In the elevator down, Minjun looked at Amara. "How did you know where I was?" he said. "Actually." Amara considered this with the seriousness she gave to all direct questions. "The news photograph of your jacket," she said. "You were wearing it at a public event 3 weeks ago. Same jacket as your last known appearance. I pulled a scent association for Rex from a video on your family's social media. There was a moment where you were holding a dog. Your face was close to your sleeve. Rex locked onto the jacket's fiber scent signature." She paused. "Then the traffic camera request confirmed direction." Minjun blinked. "I'm 17, he said. "You're 9. "I know," Amara said. "That's impressive." "Rex did most of it." Rex, hearing his name, looked up and then immediately looked forward again, apparently satisfied. Minjun looked at Sharon. "Is she always like this?" he said. "I've been asking myself that question for 9 years, Sharon said. "I don't have a better answer than yes." Minjun almost smiled, and the almost smile lasted approximately 1 second before the elevator opened, and the reality of the next several hours reasserted itself. They went to a secondary location, a floor of a midtown building that Kim used for meetings that didn't appear in any calendar. Secure, minimal, the kind of space that existed specifically for moments when everything had to be managed away from everywhere it was known. Jiho had his laptop open before they arrived. By the time Sharon sat down, he had the transfer architecture pulled and was already mapping the shell corporation structure against the logistics subsidiaries. What appeared on the screen was not complicated. That was the first frightening thing about it. Most sophisticated financial crime was elaborate, layered, obscure, designed to require forensic accountants and months of analysis. What Hansu had built was the opposite. It was simple, clean lines, direct transfers through 2 shell accounts to 2 logistics companies that existed on paper and in function, with actual shipping operations attached to make them credible. The simplicity meant he had been confident. Confident that no one was looking, confident that Kim's name was sufficient protection. He used the reputation, Kim said, looking at the screen. His voice was controlled but barely. Yes, Jiho said. He ran it under cover of the organization's known activity so that anyone who encountered it in a port inspection or customs review would back off immediately. Yes. How many? Kim said. How many people? Jiho looked at the manifests that Minjun had included in his documentation. He was quiet for a moment. Based on the shipping volumes and the dates, Jiho said carefully, I would estimate the operation moved between 40 and 80 people over 14 months. Some of the manifests are incomplete. The full number requires forensic analysis. He paused. The contact Ms. Michaels mentioned, they would have access to Port Authority records that could complete the picture. 40 to 80 people. Through ports protected by Kim's name. Over 14 months. Kim stood up from the table and walked to the window. He stood there with his back to the room looking at nothing, and the silence he occupied was a different quality of silence than any he had produced that night. It was the silence of reckoning, not with danger but with consequence. Sharon watched him. She had made a judgment call 2 days ago, and when Amara had looked up from the kitchen table and said she knew where the missing son might be. Sharon had spent 48 hours arguing against coming here, had catalogued every risk, had understood exactly what she was walking into and exactly what it could cost her. She had come anyway because her daughter had looked at her with those eyes and because underneath the professional risk assessment, Sharon had understood something that she hadn't said out loud. The boy had disappeared, and the people moved through those ports had disappeared too. Some things required showing up. Make the call, Kim said without turning from the window. Sharon pulled out her phone. The contact's name was Park Seung-yeon. She was a federal task force senior investigator, and she and Sharon had history that was complicated and professional, and built on a mutual respect that had survived Sharon's departure from federal work 4 years ago. They had not spoken in 14 months. Sharon had maintained that silence deliberately, not out of hostility but out of the careful discipline of someone who had stepped away from a world, and understood that partial returns were more dangerous than none. She had hoped she would not need to break that silence. She dialed. Seung-yeon picked up on the second ring. Sharon, she said. Not surprised, which meant Sharon realized that Seung-yeon had been watching something that connected to tonight. You know why I'm calling, Sharon said, a pause. I have a working hypothesis, Seung-yeon said carefully. Does it involve a logistics subsidiary registered in Delaware with port access in 3 northeastern states? Sharon looked at Kim's back. It does, she said. And the party providing documentation. Is motivated, Sharon said, to make this stop cleanly and completely with full priority given to the welfare of anyone moved through the operation. Another pause. Longer. That's a significant ask, Seung-yeon said. I know what I'm asking, Sharon said. I also know what's on the table. Minjun Kim spent 2 weeks documenting this from inside. The records are clean, sourced, and detailed. Jiho Lee can provide the internal financial architecture. The organization's principal is prepared to cooperate. She paused. This doesn't need to be a prosecution spectacle. It needs to close the network and find the people. Silence on the line. Then Seong-yeon said, I need 3 hours to position assets. You have 2, Sharon said. Hansu Park is mobile and he will be aware something has shifted within the hour. A breath. 2 hours, Seong-yeon said. Send me a location. Sharon ended the call and looked around the room. Jiho was still at the laptop. Minjun was sitting across the table from him, the manila folder open between them, going through documents methodically. The behavior of someone who has been doing this alone for weeks and is experiencing the specific relief of having help. Amara was in the corner with Rex, both of them apparently asleep, though Sharon had long ago stopped assuming that either of them was actually asleep when they appeared to be. Kim had turned from the window. He was looking at Minjun. Minjun was bent over a document, marking something with a pen, the lamplight catching the side of his face. And for a moment, watching Kim watch his son, Sharon saw something pass through Kim's expression that had nothing to do with organization or empire or the calculated decisions of a powerful man. He looked like a father. Just that. Just a father looking at his child across a table in a difficult room, grateful in a way that had no strategic dimension whatsoever. She looked away because that moment belonged to them. A hand touched her sleeve. She looked down. Amara, who had apparently not been asleep, was looking up at her with the expression she used when she had something to say that she wasn't sure was her place to say. What? Sharon said quietly. Hansu was at the rooftop meeting, Amara said. I know. He went downstairs when Mr. Kim sent him away. I know. He was on his phone before the elevator door closed, Amara said. I saw him through the gap. Sharon was very still. He was already making a call, Amara said, before we left, before he could have known what Rex found. Sharon processed this. He wasn't reacting, she said slowly. He was moving something, Amara said, or someone. Sharon stood up. She crossed the room to Kim in 4 steps and said very quietly and very directly, Hansu made a call from the elevator when you sent him downstairs, before we found anything. That means the moment he was removed from the room, the moment you demonstrated that you were prioritizing finding Minjun over keeping your usual structure in place, he interpreted that as a threat. Kim's jaw tightened. He has a contingency, Kim said. He has something, Sharon said. I don't know what, but Seong-yeon's 2-hour window may be shorter than we thought. Kim looked at Jiho. Jiho was already on his phone. This is the moment, right here, right now, in this room where a man is choosing between protecting everything he built and protecting what that building was supposed to be for. Where I need to ask you something directly, not politely, directly. Team Kim. He made a mistake by building something that someone could hide inside. Team Minjun. He did what most adults couldn't. He chose truth over safety. Where do you stand? Drop it in the comments. This isn't a poll. This is a reckoning. And if this story is making you think about the people in your life who built empires with cracks in them, subscribe, because next week it gets harder. Jiho had contacts inside the Port Authority. Not formal contacts, the informal kind that exist when 2 people have been operating adjacent to each other long enough to have mutual interests. He made 3 calls in 11 minutes, each one brief and coded in the shorthand of people who don't say what they mean on phones. When he put the phone down, his face was careful. There's a shipment, he said. Listed as commercial cargo, scheduled for departure from the port of Newark at 0400, 6 hours from now. He looked at the documents in front of Minjun. The manifest company is one of the subsidiaries, The room went quiet. That call Hansu made, Jiho said. He was accelerating the timeline, and he knew something was wrong and he moved the departure forward. Kim stood up from his chair so smoothly and so suddenly that two of his men who had been stationed near the door instinctively straightened. "We have 5 hours," he said. 4.5, Sharon said. "Seung-yeon needs positioning time and she needs it to be clean. No advance contact from your side that contaminates the operation." Your men do not go to that port," Sharon said. Kim looked at her. "If your organization appears at that port," Sharon said, "the operation becomes about you. The people in that shipment become evidence in a case about Kim Young-kwang instead of people who need immediate assistance. Seung-yeon's team handles the port. That was the arrangement." "And Hansu," Kim said. "Seung-yeon will find him," Sharon said. "The financial documentation makes him the central target. He has nowhere to go that the paper trail doesn't follow him." "That's not the same as having him," Kim said. "No," Sharon said. "It's not." They looked at each other. The particular tension in this moment was not the tension of people who disagreed. It was the tension of people who agreed about the destination and were negotiating the cost of getting there. Sharon understood the impulse. She had felt it herself. The desire to reach past the procedure and the protocol and handle the thing directly with hands with certainty. But she also knew what that cost. "Let Seung-yeon work," she said. "Trust the process you set in motion." Kim said nothing for a moment, then quietly, "I've spent 20 years building structures that don't require trust." "I know," Sharon said. "That's why your son had to disappear to make you use it." The sentence landed in the room like a stone into still water. Nobody moved. Kim looked at Sharon for a long moment. Then he looked at Min-jun, who had looked up from the documents and was watching his father with the expression of someone who has rehearsed a difficult conversation so many times in their head that when the moment arrives, all they can do is be present for it. "I heard you," Kim said to his son. Not about the documents, not about Hansu, about the question his son had asked 4 days ago, standing in a room with his father who controlled a city, asking if fear was the only thing he knew how to build. Min-jun was very still. "I'm not going to pretend it's simple," Kim said. "What I built and how I built it. I'm not going to stand here and give you a speech about redemption because that's not something I've earned yet." He paused. "But what you found, what you did with it, that required something I apparently failed to teach you because you figured it out yourself." Min-jun looked at his father. "What?" he said. "Courage that doesn't need an audience," Kim said. Something in Min-jun's face shifted, not dramatically. The way things shift when something that's been braced against pressure for a long time is allowed, just slightly, to release. He looked down at the documents. Then he slid the full folder across the table toward his father. "Then let's finish it," he said. Jiho forwarded the financial architecture to Seung-yeon's secure channel at 11:47 p.m. The documentation Min-jun had compiled, 8 weeks of quiet, careful, solitary work done by a 17-year-old who had understood that the evidence had to be unimpeachable, accompanied it. Seung-yeon's response was 4 words. "Moving now. Stand by." The next hour was the specific particular difficulty of waiting when action is impossible. Kim's men had been repositioned, not to the port per Sharon's condition, but to a configuration that surrounded Hansu's known locations and residences without making contact. A cordon that didn't yet exist officially but would make it very difficult to move without being observed. Jiho monitored the financial system for any further transfer activity. Min-jun sat at the table and ate the first time in 30 hours, a convenience store meal that one of Kim's quieter men had produced from somewhere apologetically, as if the inadequacy of a triangle sandwich in this moment required acknowledgement. Amara ate half of a rice cracker and fed the other half to Rex, who accepted it with the grace of an animal that has learned to eat what's available without complaint. Sharon drank coffee that was too strong and stood near the window and watched the city the way she always watched things, looking for the thing that was moving when everything else was still. At 12:34 a.m., Seung-yeon called. "Hansu Park is in custody," she said. "We intercepted him at a secondary location attempting to access one of the shell accounts for a full withdrawal. He didn't make it." A pause. "The port operation is active. We have the manifest and we're moving on the shipment now." Sharon closed her eyes for 1 second. "How many?" she said. "We don't have a full count yet," Seung-yeon said. "The manifest lists 37 units. You and I both know what that means." Her voice was steady in the way voices get steady when steadiness is a professional requirement. "We'll know more within the hour." "The documentation we sent," Sharon said. "Clean," Seung-yeon said. "Methodical. Whoever compiled it." A pause. "They knew what they were doing." Sharon looked at Min-jun across the room. "He's 17, she said, a beat of silence. "Tell him," Seung-yeon said carefully, though that it mattered. Sharon ended the call. She stood for a moment in the particular weight of what had just happened. Not the resolution of it, because resolution was hours and weeks and months away for the people on that ship and for every layer of consequence still to come. But the arrest, the port, and the movement of a machine that had been running in the dark for 14 months stopped. She walked to the table. "Han-soo is in custody," she said. "The port operation is active." Ji-ho exhaled. Kim closed his eyes briefly. Min-jun looked at the table in front of him. At the empty space where the folder had been, now transferred to Seung-yeon's chain of evidence. Sharon looked at Min-jun. "Seung-yeon said to tell you it mattered," she said. "What you documented. She said to tell you it mattered." Min-jun looked up. His face did something complicated and unguarded that 17-year-olds do when they've been carrying something heavy long enough that they've forgotten it's heavy. And then someone acknowledges the weight, and the relief of being seen is momentarily stronger than the discipline of not showing it. And he pressed his mouth together, looked away. Kim, who was watching his son, made no sound. But he reached across the table and placed his hand briefly on the back of Min-jun's neck, the way you do with someone you love and rarely touch. And Min-jun went very still and didn't pull away. It lasted 3 seconds. Then Kim withdrew his hand and said practically, "Ji-ho, begin the restructuring protocol." And Ji-ho, who understood that this was how Kim moved through the world, through action, through structure, through the next necessary thing, said, "Yes, sir," and opened his laptop. Amara from her corner said, "Rex needs water." One of Kim's men scrambled to find a bowl. Sharon sat down. Outside, the city was doing what it always did, moving, indifferent, full of lives that had no idea what had just shifted in their vicinity. And 37 people on a ship at the port of Newark who would wake up in a different circumstance than they had anticipated. A man in federal custody who had believed for 14 months that the name of Kim Young-kwang was sufficient protection for anything done under its shadow. A boy who had been sitting in a cold rental car for 30 hours waiting for his father to come looking. A father who had come. Not perfectly, not without cost, but present, which was the thing that had been asked of him, and the thing he had provided. And sometimes that is the entire story. Not always, not in every case, but sometimes. Rex found his water bowl, drank deeply, and sat back with the composed satisfaction of an animal that has completed its mission and found the world in acceptable order. Amara watched him. Then she looked at Kim, who was standing near the window again, the same posture as earlier in the evening overlooking the city, And she said very quietly, in the particular voice she used when she said things that were true. And she knew they were true, and she was simply reporting them rather than performing them. You didn't just find him tonight. Kim turned. He found you back, she said. The room was very still. Kim looked at this 9-year-old girl who had walked into a meeting of armed men and not been afraid. Who had tracked a scent across a city and found a boy who had wanted to be found by the right person. Who had seen grief in a powerful man before anyone else in the room had thought to look for it. He looked at her for a long time. Then he walked across the room and crouched in front of her, not to be at her level, but because it was the gesture that was true. And he said, "You didn't find my son." She looked at him. "You found the truth, and you brought it to the only person who could do something with it." He paused. "That required trust I had not earned." Amara considered this with the seriousness she gave to all important things. "Rex trusted first," she said. "I just agreed with Rex." Something in Kim's face, controlled, powerful, accustomed to being the most formidable thing in any room, broke open in a way that was not weakness and was not vulnerability and was not anything that had a clean name. It was simply human. He stayed crouched for a moment. Then he stood. The dog rested quietly at the girl's feet, and somewhere across the city at a port in a ship, 37 people were being counted and documented and given water, and the beginning of the long, difficult, necessary process of being found. If you are still here, if you made it to the end of this story, then you already know this wasn't just about a missing boy. This was about what we build and what we hide inside it, and whether the people who love us can see through it to find us. Have you ever built something that hid you from the people you needed most? Have you ever been the one who went looking anyway? Say it in the comments. This community doesn't do performative, it does real. Subscribe not because the algorithm needs it, but because you found something here that you want to keep finding. And come back next week, because the next story begins with a janitor who overhears 4 words in an elevator that bring down a senator, and those 4 words are not what you expect. Stay close.